Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Fluffenbusters. My name is Adam White.
Do I know you?
I hope you're all doing well. Now, we don't need to tell you how fixated Hollywood has become on sequels and remakes, but the question of which studio has pursued these types of linked projects and spin offs for the longest time, well, maybe that's not quite so obvious. If I told you that this studio also had a cinematic universe of roughly 30 films that covered different genres, contained both solo and team outings, well, you'd naturally assume Marvel or DC. Well, it's not those. This is also a studio that's not only willing to try rebooting its IP, but they also have more than once simply gone out to folks in the industry and asked them to pitch versions of their own IP to try and bring life to new projects. The studio is Universal Pictures, and for a surprisingly large amount in the 80s and 90s, they tried valiantly to resurrect one of their greatest monsters. And after more scripts, tone switches, and even genre switching than the entirety of the MCU has managed, Universal Studios released Stephen Sommers' The Mummy in 1999. It's a film that not only holds a place in folks' hearts for its mix of thrills and adventure, but the separate, real life story of its lead, Brendan Fraser, and his return to the spotlight after several horrible, horrible issues, not only ended up with Brendan winning an Oscar, but has now seen the move to greenlight a new sequel, decades after the previous films, that's currently in pre production now. And joining me to watch The Mummy is the one person that I really, really hope has limited his current reading to just 40k a manga and nothing with a weird book lock on it. It's Mr. Big D. How are you doing?
Hey man, have I mentioned that my training is actually as an archaeologist?
Combined with your love of having stuff around here somewhere, I swear you've probably got one of the books.
Yeah,
What have we done?
Now, this is a real swashbuckling film.
off the bat here. When it first came out, I actively avoided The Mummy. For some reason, my brain did not want to connect with it.
That's fine.
I still don't think I actually watched it until my housemate convinced me to sit down and watch it.
Yeah.
And I kicked myself ever afterwards because my God, is it good fun. The spirit of Indiana Jones at its best. The best pulp adventures is there's a bit of the swashbuckling treasure hunters of Robert E. Howard's more, for him, contemporary heroes.
Mm.
And I have to admit, I've taken great pleasure both in seeing Brendan's resurgence after, like you say, a very shitty, pretty much 2 decades for him, and just for broader film-loving community, people who've discovered The Mummy. And I can't wait to do this because The Mummy is just a really great fun film, and I'm so excited that they've gotten everyone back together. Everyone's on board.
This is an explosion of enthusiasm that I would have expected from George Daniel Lee. This could be a recording where I don't say much.
I'm sorry.
No, don't worry. There'll be a good chunk of our audience who are quite glad of that fact. But folks, if you're listening for the first time, all we're doing here is we like to recreate the sort of DVD commentaries that you used to find on physical media that you don't find online. This is incredibly apt for this film, as this film has some wonderful commentaries, including a very odd one by Brendan himself. And yes, I tried looking to purchase it digitally, and you can't. And that's a good reason why we try and do what we do here. We're going to start running the film shortly. We are going to start from the beginning of the Universal logo. We obviously can't show the film on YouTube. We'll just use the flicker effect, but you can watch along with us. Now, are you all good to go, D?
I am.
3, 2, 1, go. At this point, I could start talking about the development of the film, or if you want, D, you can just go for it.
I mean, it has to be noted that Universal, their monster movies, they're pretty much right back to the beginning of cinema almost.
Yeah.
As a thing. I mean, there's a reason they're called the Universal Monsters.
Yeah.
Dracula, the Wolfman, the Mummy, the Creature from the Black Lagoon. You know, all these classic monsters that in the middle of the 20th century, the early days of film, they built a massive franchise around. Effectively, there were multiple films. But I mean, hell, Abbott and Costello had a couple of run-ins with them
Yeah.
over years, and like I say, Universal did take a dish. They rebooted them time after time, and they went to creators and asked them for pitches,
Mm.
which is kind of not common with a franchise. When for the studio to go to the creators they think could have an interesting pitch, say, pitch us something.
Yeah.
It's kind of impressive, really.
The Abbott and Costello angle as well is fascinating because they were bold enough to take not only just monsters that they had in their library, but they also got the original actors involved,
Yeah.
or where they could, and had like multiple monsters, multiple of these famous monsters in a film that was then a completely different genre. It was comedy, it was broad comedy. And they got these guys in, and admittedly, it was like the last hurrah for that era of Universal.
Hmm.
It was like almost once they'd done that, they kind of jumped the shark. They couldn't scare people anymore.
Yeah.
And this is what a lot of people, even people online on YouTube, as Dee and I were talking about before the movie played, a lot of people talk about Universal and the fact that there weren't monster movies for a while. But in terms of the monster genre, it was actually British studios like Hammer that kept the whole thing going. There's a lot of Frankenstein, Dracula, and there were a lot of mummy movies as well, especially from the 60s and 70s, the UK studios. And then there was just this need, well, not need, but this desire from Universal to bring back the mummy. And it's a huge challenge because it's such an idea that you can get horrendously wrong. Like if you don't get it spot on, it could look silly or it could look too scary or it could look ridiculous. And so for them to come out with what they've come out with here, and this is, let's face it, this is pretty silly,
Yeah.
but it's also, it gets away with it.
Absolutely. And the thing is, the whole Imhotep thing, that's actually been a constant
Yeah.
through Hammer and the original Universal Mummy movie. That's who the mummy was. It was this ancient priest who was cursed. And the fact that Sommers basically created this, he took the framework and built this swashbuckler.
Yeah, people do things like, oh, this is a very 90s film. And yes, it is because of the
Mm,
effects and obviously the structure and style. But yeah, this is a loose reimagining
mm,
of the original 1930s film. And there are a lot of elements here, like the original 1930s The Mummy. The Mummy appears at the very start of the film and then is in a more humanoid form, a regular form, a
uh,
hidden form.
yeah, Boris Karloff, wasn't it? He played the
Yeah.
original mummy.
And that's him for the rest of the film. And there's
Mm,
but when he's bandaged up in the original, it is so close to the bandaged up scene here.
mm,
I was stunned. I was like, wow. And Vosloo had to go through a lot, obviously, in that scene.
mm.
But yeah, credit to them. The filmmakers really were going for a remake.
Absolutely. And the thing is, when you do a film like this, there's also an element of wanting to respect the original source material.
Yeah.
Because at the time, those movies were scary. They were proper horror movies.
Mm.
And like you say, over time, they lost that. They became a bit of a joke. It was only Hamill that kept the flag flying. And even then, over time, that's why the Dracula movies became continually more and more kind of nuts. But yeah, to take that source material and treat it with absolute, I mean, there's no known winks here. This is played dead straight, and
Yeah.
I love that they have taken a lot of ideas of research of stuff that was going on in Egyptology and the like.
Mm.
They've enhanced it. they've taken it to extremes, but there's a lot of real ideas going on.
I mean, Imhotep's servants are kind of like the gold version of the Blue Man Group.
Hmm.
That is the silly part of
Yeah,
it.
it is.
And yet, at the same time, the horror that happens to them, and what happens to poor old Arnold here as well, who did this. He's in there. He's the one suffering. Which, although there's obviously the bugs, the CG, and it's a very CG thing. Anyone who ever gets wrapped up in bandages for a film and has to sit there for hours on end, as I have sat with Jack Davenport when he was bandaged up like this for hours, it is not a pleasant experience.
Yeah,
These guys did suffer a fair bit during this film.
yeah, I can't imagine what that was like.
Oh, can I point out, first of my
Mhm.
pointing out, these are the most useless spades I've ever seen. What is the point? They've got big holes in them. I'm sorry. This is the sort of thing that happens when I watch a movie. I'm like,
Well, I mean, I don't think they're actually spades. They're using their weapons, which is just bonkers. Oh, that's a very 90s title card,
yeah.
isn't it? Oh,
Well, it's got to be said as well. So, in terms of the time that we're watching this, sorry, the time that this was made, the 1990s, digital effects were advancing so quickly
yeah.
that by the time you'd made a film, and this, by the way, 15% of this budget, and this is definitely a Wikipedia fact, folks, but this 15% of this budget was effects. They got ILM involved for this. This is the most powerful effects house using the most up to date stuff. This is cutting edge stuff. By the time this was released, it was just about cutting edge. By the time this hit home media, it was slightly behind the times. So you are going to, it's never going to be bang up to date. And this stuff ages terribly.
It does.
I say that, but like all effects, it aged up until about 2006, and then effects went backwards, and everything looks worse than it did back then. So I don't know how bad it is now, but
Yeah.
there we go. Should we talk about another special effect though?
Is it Brendan's hair?
Yeah, it is Brendan's hair. So it is mostly his own hair. He was already aging, bless him. However, nobody gives a crap. Everyone loves Brendan in whatever health, shape, or form he is in. But he's also, and this, I thought about this. He's right there. He's with Benji. He's played by Kevin J. O'Connor.
Yeah.
I put it to you, D. I think Kevin J. O'Connor should have played the Mummy, and Vosloo should have played Benji.
Oh, that's an interesting switch, isn't it?
Because Benji would then have more physicality, and it wouldn't look like Brendan's constantly beating him up and being a bully. But O'Connor literally looks like the original Mummy.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually. I mean, I get partly with Arnold casting, they wanted someone who probably could match Brendan in terms of physicality and their
Yes.
stature, which they're very well paired in that regard. But yeah, the idea of having the Mummy be someone of O'Connor's smaller stature, that's actually a really interesting.
He does, honestly,
Possibility.
his skull and his facial structure and appearance, he looks like Karloff. He does.
He
Especially
does.
when you see him later when he's a little bit dirty and you see his face is covered with more stuff. He just looks really he fits that mold.
Yeah. I mean, if you told me that they intentionally kind of his costume was to kind of echo Karloff's look to some extent, I'd believe it completely.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, he wasn't the only actor that maybe looks slightly out of place because they did do some good old role switching in this film just before shooting. But I'll go into that a little bit later.
Okay.
But this as well was a film where poor old Brendan really, really suffered for his art.
Yeah.
famously the damage that was done to him in this film. And I don't know if it was because he was a comedy actor. So this is very much like a Chris Pratt Guardians of the Galaxy situation.
Mm,
He was not considered like the action star for this film. The director had to go to vouch him after other actors pulled out.
yeah.
And he's done it. He does a great performance. But maybe because of that, I think Brendan felt the pressure to do a lot of his stunts.
Mm.
And
I mean, I think he has said that himself in interviews
yeah,
for because I mean he had done physical roles before this, not as the action hero, but things like George of the Jungle, Encino Man. They had required him to be quite physical in what he did,
mm,
and he wanted. The thing is, he's one of those actors. He was up for it. He was game for it.
yeah,
Even when he probably should have turned around and said, could the stuntman do it instead?"
mm,
And that's not a criticism of him or the production team because it's a difficult thing to balance.
mm.
But unfortunately for Brendan, by the time the mid 2000s came around, he was really starting to feel it.
He was. I'll be honest as well. He said that even after this film, he had like 3 or 4 years worth of recovery whilst he did
Mm,
other things. But you can tell, and unfortunately, they were less adept, especially with the sequels, the third one especially, of hiding the fact that he was being held together with good humor and determination.
yeah.
A real struggle for him, and yet everyone he's a natural in this role.
He so is.
He was destined to be this.
Yeah. I mean, the, the charm he brings to this role, as well as he also sells the danger
Mm,
of O'Connell, of Rick, that he is kind of this. He's got a bit of the old Han Solo about him,
yeah.
but also the 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 diamond's a bit close to the surface.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a very delicate balancing act because
Mm,
it's so easy to get that wrong. I mean, this isn't the most subtle of films, let's just say.
mm.
Oh, sorry, there are a few things I'm going to point out. It's very facty, I know, but just look for the point where she's balancing on the ladder. It's a guy. It's clearly a guy. Give it time. And
Oh yeah.
it's a guy. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they wrote Brendan Fraser in to do that.
I mean, given what I heard about the day he turned up on set as an action Mun in the full get-up.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
brilliant.
he wasn't even supposed to be on set that day, but he still turned up and was the full gold body paint, pasties, everything. Did all of her scenes. It was yeah.
A lot of people will mention this, of course, but of course you were still dealing with practical effects at this time.
Yeah.
So, for instance, that whole collapsing bookcase that was a one shot deal. They had a remote camera. They, had Rachel duck out of frame, or rather, a stunt Rachel duck out of frame, and then she popped up back where she needed to be. There's little things like that. So there is still a mix of the real as well as digital effects, which was being used all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, this film has a yes, it goes hard on digital in places, but they do try for as much practical as they can.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And man, it works real well.
Mm. This is Eric Avari,
Yep,
who has is one of several actors in this film that has made a career out of playing that Middle Eastern guy.
yep,
And a lot of these actors, they have great storied careers. They've done a lot of stuff outside of the blockbusters, but they just take it with good humor that these are the roles that they do get. I mean, obviously he's in Stargate. He
yep.
has quite a role there. It's lovely to see people like that in this role. However, he was actually meant to be the well-spoken leader of the expedition.
Oh, okay.
And in fact, this role, I believe it was this role, was meant to be played by Omar Sharif,
Wow.
which would have been really impressive. And for those
Mm,
listening who don't know, Omar Sharif, Lawrence of Arabia, like he is
yeah.
the biggest name. He would mean a lot to a lot of people, especially at that time
Mm,
because he still had that aura. Obviously he
yeah.
was a younger man back then, but unfortunately some health issues meant they had to do a
Mm,
last minute kind of switch around. So there we go.
yeah. I mean, that's a. I mean, Eric is a wonderful actor in his own right.
Mm,
Omar, though, would have, as a bit of stunt casting, that would have been. I'm
no,
just not sure. The only thing that I don't know if Omar would have perhaps been as game as Eric,
yeah,
because Eric is very much a genre actor, whereas
yeah.
Omar, his Sharif's filmology is much more serious. Not to say he hasn't had lighter roles, but nothing really in terms of this sort of work that I think of. So,
That is probably the perfect segue. I couldn't have set that up any better if I tried. Because speaking of people acting in roles that maybe they weren't ideally suited to, we have John Hannah.
yep.
Now, John Hannah, even he was going to the director going, "Why have you cast me in this?"
Mm,
Now, again, this is, ladies and gentlemen, there are films that can be huge 1 year and then you never hear from them again. There are
mm,
films that stay in the public consciousness. There are other ones that disappear. So John Hannah his claim to fame really was Four Weddings and a Funeral. He had quite a
yep.
small part, but it's quite a pivotal part. He plays somebody whose husband, let's just say that his element is the funeral of the Four Weddings and a Funeral.
Mm,
And he gives a reading and it is truly touching,
it is.
and he is a serious actor and he has done this, and then they cast him as this guy and he's like, why am I doing this?
Mm. The thing is, for us in the UK as well, Hannah before this was also more known for dramatic TV work, uh, stuff that he'd also come back to.
Yeah.
But it's kind of, I think, a bit of a revelation for it because it showed people he can do comedy. I mean,
Yes.
one thing that Jonathan's a character that he's a lot more interesting than people give credit for on the first reading of the character. Because I've seen a lot of people kind of break the character down in discussions online over the last few years as the Mummy's gained a broader audience.
Mm.
And people have pointed out, well, look, he's a drunk, he's a lush, but he's also clearly very well educated,
Yes.
knows his stuff. There's a scene later on which shows he's extremely sharp, quick on his feet,
Mm.
and it's pointed out. Well, think about it. This is an Englishman in his mid 30s at this point.
Yeah.
This is 1925.
Mm.
Why would an Englishman of that age be a drunk with issues of doing anything of any real commitment?
Mm.
And the answer a lot of people come up with is, well, surely he must have fought in the Great War.
Oh.
This is a man who's probably staggeringly traumatized,
Yeah.
and he's he's thrown himself into whatever he can do just to numb things, pretty much. And that's kind of a fascinating take when you read the character because we see later on he's not slow to pull a gun.
Mm.
He's quite happy to stand alongside Rick in the gun line. And if you think about those terms, it kind of recontextualizes a lot of his actions throughout the film. But
You see, I now know what sort of forums and pages you frequent online, the mummy discussion forums.
uh, not just them. Can we also just shout Omid Dahili
Yep.
getting one of his first big outings for people to experience his stylings, which is wonderful.
Yeah, he's a lovely guy. He is a stand-up comedian in the UK, and he's partially a comedian in the UK because of these films. He
Mm,
made his breakthrough with, this, and there was a couple of other sort of blockbusters where he played very similar. I mean, let's face it, it is not a flattering depiction
No.
it is quite. It's certainly not aged over time well, but the fact was that he was doing these films and doing quite well until naturally 9/11. And he said as well, he's gone on record as saying that the roles just stopped. People just wanted to avoid it, and you can understand why. But because of that, he started doing the comedy as a way to say, look, I am from Middle Eastern descent.
Yeah.
I'm going to go into a comedy club. I'm going to ridicule the the cause behind 9/11, not the action, not the victims. I'm going to ridicule the idea of these Middle Easterners with their political
Yeah.
aims and the way that they destroy people's lives.
Yeah.
And he said it was a healthy thing, it was a good thing, and because of that, it sort of formed his path into comedy that he still does, and he still does still does films. He's appeared in a lot of stuff. He's done some quite subversive stuff as well, but
Yeah.
it's interesting to see the way that how his career developed. And he is really good in this. His timing is great. I actually
Yeah.
feel really bad for him because his character doesn't last long enough.
Oh,
And in fact, he is given arguably the sad, horrific death to give an element of horror to what, let's face it, people thought would be a horror film.
yeah. I mean, the way he goes out is genuinely terrifying.
It also means that technically there might be at least one scarab kicking around somewhere.
Mm.
You never know. Now, one of the biggest challenges that they faced on set here, because I think everybody knows the story that Brendan was seriously injured here and
Mm.
blacked out, had to be resuscitated. They really screwed up here. But the biggest challenge that the director had with this film wasn't the app. I mean, the environment was tough, but it was the extras. And this says a lot about this film. Although it was big budget, they were using extras that they had difficulty with communication. They had difficulty kind of getting to do what they want. There are scenes later on that almost like Peter Jackson, they've had to use CGI to hide the fact that at least one extra could not stop looking at the camera, like his life depended on it. And they didn't think to move him away, even though he stood right next to the subject in frame. And you just think that there must have been so much footage that they shot for this, and they never got to use it just because the extras, and let's face it as well, the extras don't know what they're doing. They're just being told to do this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
That's it. Some lovely map work, because of course we know that in every shot of Egypt there needs to be three pyramids in the background.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a stereotype for a reason, unfortunately.
Yeah. I'm going to leave you for a moment just so you can gaze at his hair. I know you want to do it. It's fine.
I mean, it's lovely hair.
It is.
Not all of us, sadly, are blessed as he is in that regard.
Well, remember, not all of this was
Yeah.
fully natural. But then again, hey. I mean, look, I've told you as well. I've met Brendan. Admittedly, it was only briefly, and it was just him apologizing for something that wasn't his fault.
God bless.
But he is. I mean, he's a lovely guy. And they are really tapping, as you say, they're tapping into that Indiana Jones. They're tapping into that spirit of adventure. And at this time as well, the idea of a swashbuckling film, they popped up occasionally,
Yeah.
but they were becoming a lot harder to do. It's like they tapped into it with the first Zorro film,
Yeah.
but then they didn't get it with the second. They tapped into it with this, but they misfired completely with the second film. The second film in this trilogy. They found it harder and harder to get a swashbuckler, and I think it was the next one after this that really landed was Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, and that is pretty much I mean, that's as much of a love letter to the classic swashbucklers as you can get, to be honest.
Mm.
It nails it in that regard, going back to the classics of Captain Blood and all that, and the original Zorro movies.
I know we're not doing a great job of introducing you to everyone in this film, folks. We will try and get round to it. All you need to know, though, is that we have Timu Rick here. We have the knockoff Rick. And
Yeah.
the thing is that they use Rick's colors on him just in a different format.
Yeah.
So they want you to know that this is a Rick with slightly different qualities. They also as well set up these three guys by having them constantly talk in sequence for most of the film. One person says something, then the other, then the other. So you know that they come as a three-pack. And there is our expedition leader as well, the one that was swapped out in terms of roles.
I mean, that's actually quite interesting because Eric Avari would again he'd have been really good in that role, but
Mm,
having the choice that they did puts a whole different spin on things.
yeah,
Because rather than an Egyptian Egyptologist,
mm,
you have a white guy, which a whole different spin. It's
yeah.
fascinating.
Now, when Rachel was cast in this, Rachel had obviously come from TV as well. It's quite funny, her character. I mean, look, female leads in action films of the 90s didn't always have the greatest depth.
Mm.
And this isn't exactly the deepest character, but she does a fantastic job. And of course, she's an actress who's gone on. She won an Oscar maybe 5 years after this, 6 years
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
for Constant Gardener. So
yeah,
she's had a fantastic career. I've got to say that the one thing that really strikes out at me, and this is for purely personal reasons because of an ex, but of the time, she has very late 1990s eyebrows.
yes, that's a fair point.
There was a period of time where women took flamethrowers to their eyebrows to get them as thin as possible. And I mean, look, it was the power of fashion and conformity, but
Mm.
I'm glad that they hopefully don't feel that pressure today. She also has a bit of a gun fixation, but there we go. Ah, poor old Benji.
I do love their relationship in this film.
It's
McConnell and Benny. They're just
it's so abusive. It's like one of them is Brendan is literally throwing him around all the time, and you just think, oh, sorry, I keep saying Benji. I don't know why. It should be Benny. I know. Apologies, folks, but it's because I know somebody called Benji, and I sometimes have had to take him to task like this, just minus the gun. But it's this. I do wonder what the writers were thinking of when you have a character who's so duplicitous, and yet the one person that could show him friendship, he stabs in the back. It's almost like he doesn't care about anything else but himself. And the moment he tries to do anything, he just then gets punished for it. By the way, did you knew that he was Igor in Van Helsing?
yep,
He
yeah,
is a great character actor. I think there is a rumor that he's going to come back for the Mummy remake or this new Mummy film.
yeah. I think they've said that pretty much everyone who's still kicking around is up is up for it, which
That'd be good.
I'm delighted by, frankly, because yeah, bring it on. Because I
I
mean,
don't know. I don't know why she's reading from a blank page, unless. Oh no, there is writing there. Thank goodness.
mm,
She's her character is so excited by one kiss. Bless
yeah,
her.
and you have to feel sorry for whoever in the costume department had to try and make Rachel Weisz seem buttoned up
Frumpy.
and
Yeah.
frumpy for the first act of the film. Because good luck.
Right. Really important note here. I
Mm,
want you to take good notice of our friend here with the blade.
mm,
Because he's the only one who has a blade like this, I believe, out of the assassins.
mm.
And he suffers one of the longest deaths I've ever seen in a film. It is so ridiculously long, it makes no sense. In fact, there are several deaths in this film. It's almost like they shot and they knew how the death was going to play out, but then they accidentally added extra stuff in the middle, and it makes no sense. So our poor guy has already been like hit in the eye, and he's not feeling too good. But a bit of
Oh,
luck, and then yes. Now he's now burning. Just remember that he is now burning. Don't worry,
yep.
he will come back in a minute. Still burning, and it will be him because he's still got the hook on his arm. Meanwhile, all the people that had gone for a Jet 2 holiday on this particular trawler were now thinking about refunds as their boat burns around them. Gosh. Tell you what, though, as well, the squibs and getting that close to them. Again, this is the thing of its time. Stunt work in this film, it does feel a bit raw.
Yeah.
It's like they're not shy about keeping, especially Brendan, just shoving him in the thick of it and seeing how much action he could take.
Yeah, I mean, that should look as surprising as eyes after Rachel pulls him away. It's like, oh yeah, that some of that fear is more than a little real there.
Oh, by the way, you know our assassin, he's
Hmm.
still burning. Just keep that in mind. He's still burning.
I mean, this puts old Denethor to shame, really, doesn't it?
It does. And the thing is, the person who's about to run out is not the person he's just kicked into the fire. No, it's our same guy with the hook who's still burning. This is what I mean. It's just, it feels really odd.
Oh, I love that double take from the Warden as well.
Yeah, really good. And of course, there's a little nod as well, a little joke about the Americans and their love of guns.
Yep.
It worked. I mean, I'm sure it worked well. There he is. There's the guy with the hook. He's still burning. He has been burning for 4 minutes. Then he gets plugged with about 5 bullets. And then he goes over and he's still alive as he hits the water. I mean, that is impressive. He reminds me of the guy in Austin Powers that keeps getting killed and I'm still alive.
Oh, is it Mustafa?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But now, I know that this film went through a huge amount. In fact, actually, whilst they're all splashing around in the water, let's go through it quickly. This film went through loads and loads of scripts and different creative ideas. I mean, the fact that you never actually discover how Rick got that little thing, because you never see him pick it up when he's at the site, and you never see how he met John Hannah, and you never see how the thing that key got to them in the first place, shows you that this went through a lot of scripts. But when they first tried to get this launched, they actually did go the traditional horror route. They went to George A. Romero. And his idea with the Mummy was this sort of very much a Terminator thing of this will not be stopped, will not give up, will not give in, cannot be killed, boom, boom, boom. Then they went to Clive Barker, that had this really kind of, and let's face it, all I need to say is it was a very Clive Barker script. But that would have been with him coming to life in an art museum, which reminds me of a book called Contest that maybe some people have read. Then they had another guy called Alan Ormsby that had a pitch very similar to Romero's. Then they had Joe Dante, who came in, and part of his thing was it was going to focus on the part of the original, because the original Mummy, obviously, the Mummy is then Imhotep is then walking around as a human, doing stuff, manipulating. So I think he was focusing on that, but he pitched Daniel Day-Lewis as the Mummy, which would have been incredible. Then Romero tried again, and by this point, by the way, we've only reached 1994. Then there was another script that was a period script that was too expensive. And then Stephen Summers, who I think had worked with the two producers that had been tasked with this whole process, he sort of pitched his idea, and they went with it. And they said Indiana Jones meets Jason of the Argonauts. It's period. They then, because this was always meant to be like low budget, they ramped it up. So suddenly it was big budget. And Stephen Summers as well did a little film, I think it was before this came out. I think he was maybe finishing it off when he moved on to this, but it was Deep Rising.
Yeah.
And of course, that is a perfect schlock horror. So people
Mm.
knew what they were going to get, and also he had that good relationship with effects already. So that's how this film came to be.
Yeah, I mean, Deep Rising is one of those mid-90s monster movies that people sometimes forget exist, but when someone knows about
Mm.
it and you mention it, they light up
It's
because
it's almost like the 90s equivalent of a universal monster.
yeah,
Admittedly, not with a character monster, but with a monster situation, so to speak.
mm. and again with a killer cast. I mean, Treat
Mm.
Williams, Famke Janssen, uh, Wes Studi. I think I can't remember who else. There's some other names in it, but they're kind of three solid character actors to work with, to be honest.
I'm going to take advantage of this segue for the cheesiest response I can do. If you would like to see us do Eve Rising, then like, share, and subscribe.
I
There
mean,
we
he's
go.
not wrong, listeners, to be honest.
Though, because I have a strong aversion to horror and especially water based horror, I'll probably be backing out.
That's fine. I'm sure I can find a couple of volunteers from the fluff to do that one
Oh,
with me.
I have no doubt. Now, let's talk about one of the unsung heroes of this film, Ardeth Bay,
Yes.
who whose main role seemed to be initially he sits on a horse and looks off into the distance, but he narrates the beginning of the film. He clearly, and they've even said this as well, that he got on so well with the director and they were so comfortable when filming that he made sure that he didn't die off. They basically brought him back.
That's great. I've always had a suspicion about that scene at the end where he crops back up because they do make it seem like he's a goner.
Yeah.
And I mean, Oded Fair, nowadays most people probably know him best as Admiral Vance from Star Trek Discovery and Starfleet Academy, where he's been fantastic, I should point out as well.
Mm,
Play He's the novelty of a Starfleet admiral who's not a complete asshole, which
which helps.
I mean, if you've watched Star Trek for any series really, that's frankly a miracle. That's
He was also in the Resident Evil films. He's turned
yeah,
up
yeah.
on a lot of other
Oh
projects,
yeah.
but I think a lot of it as well is just he exudes a charisma. He
Oh
just
yeah.
it's weird. I think this was his first job, and yet he just looks as though he was so relaxed. It's funny though because he's talked a lot of the cast have talked about stuff recently, especially with reunions and the interest in the film following the Renaissance. But
Mm.
he was saying that whilst he was on this film, he could hear Rachel going, "This is the end of my career." Like they really didn't know if it would work. And there are elements here. I mean, just like riding on the camels, they look so stupid, even though Benny and him are again having this abusive relationship. And it is. And I'm not making it light of the situation. Brendan just spends his entire time pummeling this poor guy
I mean
and
he
then
does,
wonders why he betrays him. It's like, well, you punched him.
but then you look at Benny's expression that Kevin's given it, and there's real malice in his eyes.
Yeah, that's
O'Connell's just
true.
kind of done with it, frankly. You don't feel there's any real bitterness. It's just how he has to deal with this asshole who's been his partner for the last few years
It's
and left
true.
him high and dry. And he knows what to expect, so that's how he handles him.
He's a guy. In fact, Stephen Summers has not only used him in a few roles since, but a lot of the cast have turned up in later things by the director.
Mm,
Because Stephen Summers did GI Joe,
yeah.
and Brendan popped up in there and had a what was meant to be a cameo. It's really odd. He just
It's an odd
turns
little
up.
scene because I mean I thought he was supposed to be Flint, given how his character looks, but he's a character called Sergeant Stone.
Yeah,
I I was a big GI Joe guy growing up, and I didn't recognize that name at all until I saw the action figure. I was like, oh, okay, who's this guy? But it's an odd little scene. He just rocks up on a quad, and as Duke and Snake Eyes are hashing it out, and it's just
It's like it's like he's kind of baiting for the fight, and he's kind of acting as the referee. I'll tell you what, he's the equivalent. Remember Zoolander, where they had the pose
mm,
down? He's playing the role of David Bowie.
yeah,
He's the
true.
adjudicator, and then he wanders off. The saddest thing though is that that was roughly around the time that things started to fall apart for Brendan.
Mm.
And I don't know, do you want to go into that now, or because I want to bring
I
this up
think
at some point for
it is
people.
worth discussing because it
Okay, so long story short, Brendan had a lot of injuries, which people I think pretty much know about. He also had some flops, which again you won't remember because flops tend to disappear. But one of the big ones was a thing called Furry Vengeance. People were really quite tough
mm,
on him. But most of his stuff was there's two things. One, he split with his wife, and that was really tough. Also, because there was a divorce settlement, and that was made when he was earning lots of money, and then suddenly he wasn't, and there were issues. But the big thing, and I hope you don't mind me saying this, is about the press association guy. Are
yeah.
you allowed? Are you okay for me to say a little bit about this?
If you hadn't mentioned it, I was going to.
Okay,
'Cause
so
it's
he was basically at a Hollywood Press Association, very powerful, and he was chatting to I believe the president, and the president was a guy called Philip Burke, and the president groped him.
mm,
And as somebody who has unfortunately been in that situation more than once, it can be very distressing, and this definitely seems like quite a prolonged incident. Anyway, the guy, after years of saying he never did it, actually came out and said, "Oh no, I did do it, but it was just in jest." But when you basically have a very nasty encounter with somebody who's in charge of the Hollywood press, it's one of those things that contributes not just to Brendan's mental challenges during that time because he was having a really tough time with everything going on in his life,
yeah,
but also the perception of him. He got not bad press, but he was just ignored, and
yeah,
the guy was. And it wasn't. This is the weird thing. He made stuff as he was on the cusp of having this bad spell, and then he started making stuff that signaled the end of this bad spell before obviously people were aware of it.
yeah.
So to some people, it does look as though he disappeared for a couple of decades, but the reality is he probably spent about 8 years in the wilderness,
Mm,
and then he came back, ironically, through a thing called Trust, which was a TV show that was
yep.
done, I think, for FX, and
I
he
think so,
just
yeah.
a lot of talking to camera. It's incredible. It is. Oh, the guy's charisma literally drips
Mm,
off the screen, and it's one of those things that because he came back in such a strong way, people went, "Where the hell's he been? We miss him."
yep.
And it was so, even though he was still like his gap in films was 2014 to 2019. But TV work, he did 16, 17, and 18. So you see what I mean? It's like he wasn't out of action for
No,
that long. But when it came back at the time as well, there were a lot of photos of him. Obviously, he doesn't, when he's out in public, he doesn't try to hide the fact back then that he'd mostly gone bald on top.
yeah.
People mashed up a picture of him with somebody else to create the sad Brendan meme. And so people were literally had Reddit threads just saying, look, is he all right? They
Mm,
cared about him. He was a nice actor. And then when it started coming back and things started going good for him, it was Reddit that coined the term the Renaissance. And then that hit with a few films where he was just seen on the big screen. Everyone got really excited. And then next thing you know, he's working with like really talented directors. And then suddenly, I think he did The Affair, but the big thing for him, of course, was, he did The Whale.
yeah.
And that was one of those things where Hollywood likes sometimes you win because of acting, you win an Oscar because of your performance. Sometimes, and everyone will admit this, sometimes you win because the general sentiment is that you deserve it. And with Brendan, it was a case of both. And there really was this sort of outpouring of love, and that has then led since to people going, well, we want him in something, give us something. And eventually, boom, that's when you get The Mummy being remade or given a sequel. Okay, I've now talked for too long. I'm going to shut up. All yours, D.
Yeah, I mean, it does break your heart a bit to hear about what Brendan went through, but it is great that he's had this resurgence, and but people are rediscovering his movies because even those films of his that were flops at the end of his initial surge, n- a lot of them aren't actually bad movies. They just
No.
didn't click, so people
Yeah.
have been finding them again. But
He did a film with Ian McKellen called Gods and Monsters,
yeah,
which
that's
ironic considering what happened to him, but it actually features a very similar situation in the story to what happened to him in real life.
mm,
But I remember sitting in that cinema and sobbing so bad at that. And let's just say that is a genuine take on the Universal Monster film, but from the idea of it's a film about the filmmakers. And it really is quite incredible. I urge you all to see that at some point.
yeah. I
Oh
mean,
dear, we have our lonely death.
oh, oh, yeah, this is very unpleasant. This one,
Again, it's the CG at the time, they were doing what they could do, but the thing is, you don't need anything too advanced to get across the horror element of this. And the fact is that nobody saves this guy. Nobody.
no,
But again, it's a timing thing. He is now dead or dying.
mm, but
Okay, remember our burning guy on the boat? Remember how long it was until he actually turned up again and died properly? Yeah. Unfortunately, our poor guy is still screaming and struggling somewhere, and nobody knows what's going on with him. He's just in the background somewhere. He's probably gotten lost. He's trying to find his way back before he properly starts screaming. God.
I do also appreciate how mildly petty Jonathan is there.
Oh,
With the whole,
yeah.
hey, that's mine.
He is he's very very bitchy. It's a terrible end for the character.
It is wonderful bit of physical performance from Omid though, because
Well, it's part that, but it's also like incredible. That's probably one of the most structured and most carefully prepared stunts. So they had a guy on the rope, and so he physically could not run into that wall. He
yeah,
would be a couple of centimeters shy, but because of his motion and because there was a rope behind him, it just meant the guy would just get pulled back instantly. So, and then add a bit of sound, and it's oof, really nasty. And it is nasty. And of course, they're making
yeah.
light of the fact that two of the other team just got burnt horribly by acid.
Mm.
I love, but can you ask? Because you say you've
Yeah,
you've got a background in archaeology.
yeah.
What? So, are there genuinely? And I know they wouldn't work, and I know that they are massively overstated in these films. But are there not booby traps because that glamorizes them, but are
Mm.
there things put in place that have been found in these types of tombs try and dissuade people from finding them?
I mean, for the most part, a lot of these, it's more the stories and the aura that's been spread around them. I mean, you have to remember that a lot of these tombs were built for rulers who were considered living gods. That
Mm,
that's that's a sort of distinction we're making here of the level of person involved, and the belief of curses and the like was very strong.
mm,
And the thing is, it kind of got reinforced when you had the likes of the Tutankhamun expedition. A lot of the people involved in that died, fairly soon after opening it. That actually wasn't a curse. They worked out it was because they were breathing in rotten, stale air and bugs from
Yeah.
that have been there for thousands of years.
Yeah, an unhealthy environment. It's like years, well, dozens of decades later, well, not dozens of decades, but years later, they suddenly go, oh, why are all these people that walked into this asbestos plant? Why are they all suddenly getting sick? It's because they were in the wrong environment.
Yes.
It's nice that I never knew that about the original curse. Though that's nice to know.
I mean, that's one of the big ones. I mean, but also the fact that it's kind. I'm trying to think how to describe it without coming across like a bit of a pretentious Western asshole. But
Mate, we're doing a commentary on
I
YouTube.
know,
It's fine. It's fine. We
yeah,
we we know we're not perfect.
yeah. I mean, okay. Here's the thing: ancient Egypt. It's real hard for anyone to truly grasp the sort of amount of time we're talking about for this
Yeah.
civilization. It wasn't even one civilization; it was multiple.
Mm,
Because I mean, during the time of Ramses II, the greatest pharaoh, so they say, there were ancient Egyptian archaeologists excavating the sites of the previous dynasties from
yeah.
for them thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
In the time of Cleopatra, there were archaeologists excavating. So these things were. This civilization is ancient, and the Nile Valley, the myth that arises from that, the stories and the environment, it's such a it's a unique locale because of how the Nile affects growth. I mean, technically, nothing should exist in that part of Egypt
Mm,
of North Africa, but it does because the Nile Valley floods and creates these really fertile plains to grow on. Without that, nothing lives there, but it
mm,
does, and so there's an inbuilt mysticism attached to that because that's what humans do. We attach things to that, and it all bleeds together into this melange of myth and folklore that actually there is a little more than a little bit of stuff baked in that gives people a reason to believe. So
mm. Nice.
yeah,
Big D has a book on Egyptology available on Amazon now.
don't
Links
say
in
that.
the description.
I'm the first to admit my knowledge of Egyptology is I'm very much I know some basics. I was always more of a Iron Age hill forts and the like man,
Mm.
unfortunately. Uh, but it is fascinating just to see what you can find out.
One of the nicest elements of this film is that they do play on the comedy as well
Yeah,
as the horror. There's all these moments where they almost kiss or
mm,
he throws her overboard. There's lots of silly stuff.
yeah,
It's nice. It's
it is.
they have a they I think they keep the right sort of tone for the whole film.
Well, the nice about this is it's a pulp adventure film with a dash of screwball romance,
Mm.
and I mean that very specifically. That classic, um, the classic comedies of that era, the Katharine Hepburn and
Yeah,
you,
because this
know what
is
I'm saying?
this is something this is something that people maybe are not too familiar with because even in comedies nowadays you have the zany person and then you have the straight person,
Mm,
and for a long time especially in the 80s it tended to be the crazy male comedian in a role, and then the person, the girlfriend, the object of his affections would be
mm,
played as straight. Of course, nowadays you tend to have a lot more where it's the female that's the comedienne who is played as the crazy one, and she's infuriating the straight guy. But Screwball was where they were
yeah,
both nutty, and you still get these things pop up occasionally. they're a good match for each other. You have things like Anchorman as well, where the entire cast are all in on it and they're going for it. But yeah, this really does tie back to a few films, and Katharine Hepburn's a great choice as
Yeah,
well because she's
Cary Grant,
yeah,
Audrey Hepburn, all actors of that sort of ilk who kind of made their name in like the 40s and 50s with that very specific sort of comedy that were also deeply romantic.
yep. Now, it took me a while when I was watching this and making some notes on this. Why would anyone who just found a mummy decide to prop up the casket against the wall before opening it? Because if it was dust and bones, then it would all just drop to the bottom of the casket. It's not the most flattering way to show off a mummy.
I
But
mean, that does it.
yeah, that is very gooey.
I do love that reaction though. It's still gooey or juicy rather.
Oh, juicy, that's it. Sorry. They did. They went to a lot of time and trouble though to get the idea, the design of the mummy right. And because this is ILM, and it's ILM of this time as well,
Mm,
so there was a lot of what they call maquettes. So if anyone's seen a Lord of the Rings thing, you see they're always bringing up 3D models of the characters whilst they're designing them. That's what they did here. I mean, that used to be part of the course anyway, but
yeah,
that's something. Unfortunately, I think everything is fully digital now, but there was a real handcrafted element to these models.
yeah,
And then when they built them, ILM again, they really did. They pushed the boat out. They built this thing from the inside out. And once they finished building it, they realized that it looked a lot better the more they took out the insides. So
mm,
when you see it, it's not just like meant to be a skeleton for skeleton's sake. It's meant to look mostly disappeared because it just looks better on screen like that.
yeah. Having a mummy with lots of negative space is,
Mm. Good
I mean,
silhouettes.
yeah. I mean, you see it in a lot of. I mean, one of the reasons some of the more modern miniatures on the market get so much praise is because of a really good use of just missing volumes,
Mm.
stuff that shouldn't work but does because of how just off it all is.
There has to be, especially at this time, there has to be a good dose of sexism by at least one of the other characters as well. But you
Mm,
see what I mean, though, about these guys? They say their lines one after the other, so that you know that they're grouped in together. This all ties back as well to the original film and the fact that there were various body parts split up.
mm.
I do actually owe one of these guys an apology, and the worst thing is I haven't even written his name down. So our last survivor, he was in the play Frost Nixon
Hmm.
with Sheen and Frank Langella
Yes.
in London. And our guy here he was playing like a minor role. And we were all waiting by the stage door for these guys to come out so we could sign stuff. And he came out. And of course, although we knew him, and at this point he'd been in Hellboy as well, so we really knew him. But we didn't want to leave because we didn't want to go over to him because we were waiting for Sheen and Frank. And I always felt bad because nobody asked him for an autograph. And if one day, if I see this guy, I will ask him. And in fact, if I know he's somewhere, I will go and get my copy of Frost Nixon, my original booklet, and I'll get him to sign it. Sorry, that was a
Okay.
needless that was a needless diversion, but at least it was relatively connected to the film that we're watching.
That's what it is. I think that was Corey Johnson. I
Oh, there
think.
we go.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a member of the American team that I always recognize
Yeah,
from, from just from being in so much stuff.
stuff. Yeah. It's like the other guys, I don't think I've seen them in other films. It's like the other guys are pretty much one and done for me, unless you've seen them in other stuff. But in fact,
Yeah.
the whole core cast for this is actually quite small. I
Mm.
mean, I suppose the nature of the film anyway is you're only going to grab certain things. You're only going to need certain people for certain scenes. And people like Benny just appear and have the same role throughout the film. So you don't need to cast somebody else every so often. But yeah.
Yeah, it's a very tight cast. Because
Mm.
otherwise, you are really talking about extras beyond that. So it's pretty surprising.
I love the attention there that they did put into this book. Really, really nice.
Mm. I mean, it is a bit of an all-timer bit of design they've gone for as well.
Mm. So if you open a casket that contains a book and you know that if somebody reads from that book that you're
Mm.
going to be cursed, you shouldn't let people have it because at some point some researcher is going to read from that book. It's one of those things. It's like, and also if he didn't care about the curse at the time, why does he care about it now? I'm
I mean,
not.
I
Don't
think
worry. I'm not going to argue too many things over the rights and wrongs of various things. Even though some of these guys have plot armor with the locusts.
there's a whole thing where honestly, the worst people to be trusting with things like ancient tomes and mystical curses are the very people who would be finding the damn things in the first place
Yeah, true.
because they're naturally inclined to.
You always have to have a real sacrificial lamb. The easy victim for the bad guy. And this is, I mean, poor guy. He can't see. He's in the worst situation. I would have just put the glasses on and just given it a go and see if I could see a shard of something.
Yeah,
But he does. He again. He's waiting there for a long time. A long time. It must have saved them quite a bit on shooting times because they do this one set and it takes up a good couple of minutes out of the film. And all they're doing is right. We're going to shoot from this angle, then this angle, then this angle, and we'll go backwards and forwards.
yeah, it's effective. Got to give it that.
Oh, I
It,
do
it could,
wonder though. I do wonder if this would be the one time where they would purposefully unfocus the camera, or whether they do that in post.
yeah, that's a.
He has got a good scream. So something when I saw this bit as well, I realized that this actually has a bit of an element of Prometheus to it because they've gone into this place and they've been wary, but they've not been horrified. But
Yeah.
now they're very aware that things are out of their control.
Mm.
And especially with this invention of the bugs, which is like a combination of something like 6 or 7 different insects all shoved together to create
Yeah.
these things. Is again, it's a very effect of its time, the
Mm.
swarm. But it's suddenly this whole place is suddenly working against them, and so it has callbacks to things like the first Alien versus Predator film with the booby traps, which is something a
Yeah.
film
Yeah.
I never thought I would need to mention in any context ever. And please shoot me if I ever mention it again. But yeah, just the idea that this becomes the sort of almost like the haunted house ride for a bit. Like there are little scary moments, but
Mm.
nothing too bad for the rest of the film.
Oh, completely. It,
But go on, sorry.
no, so to say, it really does get properly, or they really go for the scares in this bit. It's really nicely.
But they also as well. This is something especially with this moment.
Hmm.
They hold it. So normally it would be a quick jump cut and kill, and then that would be it. Especially with modern horror, it's just a series of jump cuts. But the mummy is just he's in front. He's now talking. He's not going anywhere. This is a digital character that is just staying in the frame. So it's part of this whole idea to make the mummy a genuinely, a character in his own right, and not just be the
Mm.
monster that slowly takes them out one by one. God,
Yeah,
those bugs are efficient.
yeah, it's important as well to because the mummy had become a bit of a stereotype at this point. It was the old,
Bit joke.
literally the gag, the dude wrapped in rags with the arms outstretched. It's it's a classic bit of cinematic iconography, and yet this film makes it properly frightening. It for all it is a CGI effect, you can feel a performance underneath it. I don't know if Arnold actually did
Yes.
the
He
mocap for it,
so
but
he came back. Now he said as well, because this is a really tough role. In fact,
mm,
we'll say a bit about this. So I think he'd worked with one of the producers on one of the Under Sieges. I think it was the sequel. So he'd obviously had to deal with one of the most annoying actors in Hollywood. And so they knew he had patience. If you can survive Seagal, you can survive anything. So he came
yeah,
onto this. Now he came onto this and he admitted as well, he was just a regular guy, regular shape. If anything, he was a bit heavy.
mm,
And he didn't even know how limited his costume was going to be. I mean, it's basically a G string
yeah,
with
pretty
some robes. So he had to do very much like Christian Bale did on Batman. He had to lose weight on the set during the filming to try and cut down. So they shot other bits first, and then he did his thing. But they then at the end of the filming, they said, "Look, we need you to come on board and do." And I think it was something I can't even remember. It was 3 days or 3 weeks. Part of me wants to say the 3 weeks, but he did a period of time where he went onto a green screen and recreated every single moment of
oh
this
wow,
mummy's performance, everything he'd already shot as well against the green screen. So he had the footage
yeah,
to match it again. It must have been 3 weeks because it can't have been 3 days. But so and he even said to them, like, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know how this works. I'm just going to have to trust in the process.
mm,
So I will do whatever you want, and you just tell me what you need. But just be aware that I will not understand what you're talking about. But apparently, yeah, I mean, he did. He so many of the scenes that you see, especially the like ones where he's sort of half brought back, and there's
mm,
where the bug runs out of his neck and goes
yeah,
into his mouth, and that's him against the green screen later, working with ILM with all the ping pong balls. So it was of that time, and it's just yeah, it's just he helped in a very real way. He helped get this film to the level that it was because he had the time. So he is doing the mocap for this, or what they called the mocap at the
mm,
time. It's a very different process,
yeah,
but it was helping. Yeah, he really did help everyone out, which is again another thing why people, in the subsequent films, they wanted to bring him back and they want him to do as much as possible. And like a lot of the cast as well, like the cast talk about the film, and I think all of them have good things to say about the film.
mm,
Brendan probably had the roughest time,
yeah,
and they've not obviously all been portrayed wonderfully. It's a shame. Ahmed just
yeah,
his character wasn't great, but he's never taken offense to it.
mm,
And so there's a lot of goodwill around this film.
understandable, really. I mean, I know you're saying that Vice can be heard saying this is the end of a career, and you can understand it because it's a very effects heavy project, and whilst you're making something, you don't really know how it's all going to come together. But
Even Brendan said they didn't know what they were making
mm,
because it was such a hash together of different ideas and nobody was sure if it would work or not. So, and that's the case with so many projects is that if you try to pitch this to somebody, especially at the time, it's like, well, it's the mummy. Also, it's horror. Well, it's horror, but it's also screwball comedy. Oh,
Mm,
what? So it's like Abbott and Costello? No, it's not slapstick as such, but there's an element of slapstick, an element of adventure, an element of swashbuckling, an element of romance, and an element of thriller. And you think, well, okay, that can go catastrophically wrong. But
mm.
then you have things like Pirates of the Caribbean, which is very much of the similar template.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I mean, if if you can get the balance, I mean, it's a mix that hits with people, really.
Mm. And if you don't get the balance, then you get stuff like Cutthroat Island. And if people listening don't know what Cutthroat Island is, I don't blame you. But all it is a film that didn't work. And the
Yeah,
thing is, those things don't tend to,
and
survive the test of time.
yeah, and sadly, Cutthroat hurts because it has all the pieces there. It's got a great cast. It's got a lot of practical effects. You.
I would argue that it's the central three characters here that are the reason why this film works at all.
I could defend that statement. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Because
Uh,
Brendan is for large chunks, he's carrying the film.
mm,
Even though it's not easy stuff to say. And as you're right as well, John Hannah he's doing the over the top stuff, but he's also then dialing it back down in moments where he's not needed to be silly. And it works well. I
it
do.
really
So
does.
so there is, I believe it is the most watched ever episode of Doctor Who that was in the very early 80s, and it had the return of the Master in it.
Mm,
And I believe there was a cricket scene going on with the Doctor whilst he is revealed, or something like that. A juxtaposition of innocent country life and this. Now, I was very, very, very young. I easily below 6 years old, and this reveal of the Master is famous for being just really gory. And I
yeah.
get incredible flashbacks to this. If anyone here has seen old Doctor Who, they got away with so much stuff. It was far worse than this Mummy. But when I saw this again, I got immediate flashbacks to that. And that's a good thing because it's a nice taste of British horror. Again, a bit cheesy, a
Mm.
bit campy, but it works.
I mean, who has a solid track record for doing stuff like that, putting out
Exactly.
genuine horrors that, well, genuine scares more than horrors, I suppose, is a better way of describing it. Things that you wouldn't expect.
I am surprised that they included elements of the military because you can see them in the background. They walk past there. And yet, there we go. That's a military person burning to death. But the thing is that the military don't really get involved here. It's one of those things, surely it would have been easier for the filmmakers if they'd not involved them because then the adventure would purely be these guys. Whereas if the military are being attacked, you'd be surprised that they weren't the ones sending troops after the mummy.
Yeah, I mean, part of it, I think, is also time. The 20s was an odd period for global military, and at this point, it was still Egypt was still, I think, a part of the British Empire, or at least there was some heavy control in place there.
Mm.
That's why you have Archie. But there were there were treaties in place, so it wasn't really a strategic strong point.
Mm.
And I think partly just it's what they had available. That's why they Shanghai Archie and his biplane.
Oh yes, yes. Bernard Fox, Captain
Yeah.
Winston Havelock,
Oh, that's right, Winston. Yeah,
which it could have that name could have been pulled out of a Discworld book.
it
Terry
would.
Pratchett would have been proud.
Yeah, a moustache the man it wears. Yeah.
Now, after this scene, I did wonder why didn't they just grab a very large amount of cats and just populate every scene with cats and just build up the idea that cats were the immunity force because it was a cat that he saw that made him run away, wasn't it? Or is
Yes.
that later? I've just
No.
sorry.
It, it, the cat's what scared him away from EV. Thing. Oh, excuse me. And it's fun because that's I always forget the name of her because it's an Egyptian goddess who it's a cat goddess, but
I
she
want to say ISIS, but it's not, is it?
no, it's what's it? Because the thing is, when she's sober, she's a bloodthirsty destroyer, but when she's
Mm,
drunk, she changes personality entirely to literally become almost a different. Oh, Hathor, I think it is. I think it's Hathor.
okay.
I could be wrong on that score, so please tell me, folks. But cats were there's a relationship between cats and the Egyptian. As you've seen the artwork of the Egyptian gods with
Yeah.
animal heads. That's kind of a bit too literal a way to think of it because it wasn't so much that they were gods with those heads; it's more that they were gods who were associated with those animals. It was just the way they depicted them, and I cats were a particular guardian animal of the underworld, if I remember rightly, in the ancient Egyptian pantheon. So
I love the idea as well that so this the moon is blocked out of the sky, so nobody the guards are like, oh, that's a little strange. Maybe we could consider that as a bit of a problem. And I'm like, you do realize that the world is ending.
I mean, the counter argument is that, well, that's just enlisted men. They're probably just thinking, well, that's above my pay grade.
Yeah, I'm not dealing with any of that. I actually never taken that much notice of the holster getup that
Hmm.
our hero is wearing, but they did a good job in the old costume department. And once again, he's bullying people. Well, there we go.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of the classic adventurer's get-up. I mean, it's become even more that since this movie for how you depict a pulp adventurer. White shirt, gun holsters.
Would you say as well that because of the Indiana Jones stuff that they've attempted recently, especially with older Harrison Ford, do you think that was one of the main reasons why the possibility of a mummy film is now so freely accepted? Like people expect it's almost the cliche now of the old adventurer because they're not making a lot of young adventurer films. They're
That's
making these
true.
reboots with the older ones. So it's almost like Brendan Fraser is the right age to play this character now. As
Yeah,
Brendan's character just throws a
throws a
chair at
chair.
Benny.
I mean, it's a reasonable point to make. I mean, there's an argument for modern entertainment world has not really been very good at creating the sort of stars like Harrison Ford or Tom Cruise or even
Mm.
Brendan Fraser of the mid-90s. And I know that if I remember rightly, The Mummy I think it hit Netflix last year or the year before,
Okay.
which played a part in getting it a wider audience.
Ah.
And I know we've mentioned in the past how streaming can be really hard for films to find an audience, but equally, when films like this do finally hit a streaming service, they just and are promoted as well as being there.
Mm.
It becomes much easier for a wider audience to access them.
Yeah.
So I suspect
Yeah.
it's a bit of both. Like you say, there is that feeling that well, the lead has had a career resurgence. It's a well-loved film. Let's and if the original is doing decent numbers on this platform, well, what can we do?
I just realized there was a nice old fashioned in camera trick there with the stunt guy jumping out the window and Benny then jumping back into frame or popping back into frame. Nice low budget stuff for effects.
Mhm.
Combined with the mummy in probably his most intimidating form. And it's
That
not, he's not bound in rags, but he's dressed in them, and it does look really good.
yeah. This one is interesting. He's only got one shirt sleeve or one jacket sleeve on.
Oh, he got injured in the last
Oh,
scene, and I
ah,
have to admit,
I missed that.
I didn't realize until we're watching it this time. It's like, oh, okay, I get it. Now, Timu Rick is about to meet his end, but in fairness, this is the guy that has done almost everything right. And he's
Yeah, yeah.
taken out by something that he couldn't predict. Now, the other guys have done stupid stuff all through this film, but he hasn't.
Mm,
And the only thing he's not done is he's not closed his window, but he's not expecting what comes next. So I'm surprised this guy there wasn't a bigger star in his own right. Maybe he's one of those guys that has been on screen, but maybe a while later, maybe he's aged
mm.
up a bit, and maybe I just don't recognize him. But
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking whilst we were watching this that he, in the jawline especially, he reminds me a lot of Kurt Russell. He's got
yeah,
that same sort of
yeah,
vibe going on.
mm, absolutely.
That's still a great
It's
little gag where the bug goes in and Arnold just goes. "Mm."
yeah, absolutely. Now, whilst we have another scene with Rachel Weisz being kissed, do you know about all the sequels to this?
Uh, there's the Mummy, uh, the Scorpion King.
Yeah, The
There
Mummy
was
Returns, which was the one with, for those who don't know,
yep.
the one that was rushed,
Hmm.
very rushed, and because of that, the CG just wasn't very good.
New. There was the Scorpion King spin-off, and then the Mummy Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, and I
Yep,
think there were maybe 3 or 4 Mummy Scorpion King films.
that's it. So the Scorpion King just had a life of its own on crappy video straight to
Mm,
DVD remakes. Really, really, really bad. And there
mm.
were, I think, 4 or 5 Scorpion. Oh, sorry, this is the cat
Oh,
scene.
yeah.
Okay, I did wonder. So I keep looking away to check notes and make sure I'm not talking complete rubbish, and then I miss stuff on the screen. But yeah, this the amount of Scorpion King direct to video sequels that they made for it is genuinely horrifying, especially
Yeah.
since the actors get less and less related to The Rock as they're going.
I mean,
Uh,
the first one's not got a bad cast really, 'cause it's got The Rock in his first real leading man role.
yeah,
It's got Michael Clarke Duncan,
is always
and
good.
it's got Kelly Hu,
Yeah,
and that's a solid trio of actors to have leading your the only weird thing about it is that the character in that film bears no resemblance to how he ends up in the in the Mummy Returns. It's
yeah, they just, I think it's a good example as well of how quickly a film can lose its way. Then
mm,
again, I mean, we've seen that recently, and again, I know people will have different opinions on the quality of the films, but the reality is that things like Star Wars, they've struggled with their direction. I don't want this to turn into a Star Wars discussion, but a lot of franchises, Star Trek as well, you've seen them over maybe a period of a decade or so just lose their way. The Mummy was that, but condensed down to about 5 years. So
yeah,
from being a smash hit to suddenly really being done, and the Tomb of the Dragon Emperor was almost like the nail in the coffin. It was almost after people were done with it, and
yeah,
there were
and
there were issues, and also that was when the scripts were getting so bad that like Rachel didn't want to come back, which is why they
mm,
recast her, and that just sort of even more bad blood for the production. So,
yeah, and again that hurts because Tomb has Michelle Yeoh and Jet Li in probably at the time their biggest Western movies.
and they just didn't cast them well.
Yeah,
It
I
was
mean,
just, or rather, they cast, but the characters just didn't have stuff worthy of them. Like
yeah,
you could leave them as the main characters, and they would carry a film. They absolutely would.
absolutely.
But
But because we wanted to make it part of the broader Mummy franchise, it and tie it into what people knew at that point. It just
Now, people have a go at John Hanna's character for not being intelligent, but this is next level thinking. Well done.
oh yeah, that is quick thinking. This is the scene that to me puts anyone who considers his character to be an idiot or not worthy of being part of this team. That's the scene that kind of puts the lie to that. Because man, the quick thinking there to blend in and then jump into the car and have it ready to rock and roll. That's quick thinking.
Good old Benny, though, he's still, keeping to form. He's just betraying at every opportunity. Now, you are going to get used to some of these extras, ladies and gentlemen. They will turn up a lot. It's like they had the same group of about 25 extras, all done up in makeup. Some of them even look as though they are authentic for the area, and some of them just look as though they're bored extras. But they do turn up a lot. I don't blame them, though.
Yeah.
They're doing what they can, and because I'm trying to think if this was genuinely on location or whether this was in London, because a lot of this film, well, not a lot, but certainly a lot of the sequel was shot in London and around Pinewood Studios.
Yeah.
And so little cutaways and anything where they can get away with stunt work, they'll try and do in the safest environment possible.
And you got to imagine that a scene like this, they must have had the stunt team queuing up. This is the sort of job I imagine the stunt team would. It's what they've been waiting to do.
Yep.
You can imagine the director going, right, so when you have a car coming towards you, I need all of you to jump on top of it. And then our hero's going to fend you off. Yeah.
It's a shame. If this guy had just done Imhotep and just kept running with everyone else, maybe he'd be safe.
Yeah.
But this is the worst end because he knows he's going to die. There's literally nothing he can do.
Yeah.
And credit to Arnold as well. This is because you do lose, let's face it, you lose something. You lose all the horror of the mummy when the mummy becomes just a normal looking person. And Arnold is giving a lot of intimidation here because of his size. And you're right, actually, the size does work to his advantage. But yeah, he genuinely looks still a little bit creepy here. It's only after this, when he becomes all human, that he becomes a bit of a smarmy git. Like, he does a lot of sarcasm. There's a lot of little looks and nods, and this is where he kind of goes camp, just a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's the point where at this point, he's resurrected. He's, as I say, he's fully regenerated. So he can kind of afford to be a bit of a prick about things. And I love that she corrects his pronunciation.
Which further endears her to him. And Rick is trying to give it all as the hero, and in terms of pacing as well, when I was looking at my notes and looking through this as well, I realized it takes about a third of the film for everyone to get to the mummy. And then it takes a third of the film for the mummy to win. And you always have again it was the end of the second act, the hero is at his lowest point, and this is the lowest point. But in terms of like the final showdown, this is one of the earliest setups for a final showdown I've seen in a movie. Because they always go from here and very, very quickly they're sort of there's a little bit of the biplane stuff, but it almost feels like they had the finale and then the finale goes on for a long time. Like they stretch it out, which is good. It's good popcorn stuff.
Yeah.
But it's different from other films where often they wait until the last 5 minutes to really start, to give you your showdown.
Yeah,
Now,
it's interesting.
I don't know if Omar Sharif could have done this.
No, he was. I think he was 70s by this point,
Yeah,
late 70s, early 80s. So yeah, this would have. I mean,
this
I
would have
think.
been a stunt double or something. Probably a
Yeah,
lot of stuff from behind. It's
yeah.
a bit again. It's one of those things though. It's a little bit needless
Mm.
because the other guys would have gotten away anyway, and they've only bought themselves like 30 seconds.
I think it's one of the things where it's 30 seconds that could be all the difference.
Okay, I will grudgingly take that as
Mm.
we see the finest example of the Royal Air Force ever portrayed on film.
Yeah, I was going to say technically at this point it was still the Royal Flying Corps, not the.
Ah,
Sorry.
no, that's okay. Look, if there was going to be anything that you would do that about, it should be this.
Mm.
But okay, can I ask then what what's this? Is this accurate for planes of the period? Because this almost feels like maybe it's the way they shot it, but I didn't think going back this far that planes at this point were this dynamic and robust. I
I
thought,
mean,
and maybe I'm being a bit silly here, but
planes were still being iterated on right through the 20. I mean, it was only really the 30s you kind of got the single, the classic, what we think of as the World War II fighters with the
mm,
single wing.
yeah.
Before that, it was all bi or tri wing
Oh, okay.
designs, and they still did persist. I mean, you had the flying boats and like that still made use of that design
Mm,
that we used in World War II, but it's more a case. By this point, the planes were a bit more robust than they'd been during World War One,
yeah.
because those planes were very fragile.
Which
These were getting
they learned
these,
to their cost.
yeah, these we've reached a point where the planes are much more not armored, but they're designed. I mean, for one thing, they're armed, as you can see with the tail gunner
Yeah,
of that one. Most of the planes in World War One, the guns were added. They took time to work out how to get the guns just to fire without blowing the rotors off. To be fair,
true.
blow the prop off. So a lot of them weren't built into the designs. But no, this is not unreasonable for a colonial outpost. Literally, the flying corps is pretty much one man
Ah,
as the
honestly,
representative. So
these effects might as well have a copyright 1990s all over them.
yeah, but I remember the old. Do you remember ITV used to run movies, games, and videos,
Yeah,
and they showed off this scene so many times during the summer of '99. And it's understandable. It's a hell of a scene to. It's one of the reasons I'm annoyed at myself for dismissing The Mummy and not going to see it at the cinema, because I'd have loved to have seen this on a big screen.
well, you weren't the only person who dismissed it because when they tried to drum up interest in this film, people weren't buying it. They weren't interested, and in fact, it took them doing a Super Bowl trailer. So this is one of those big early Super Bowl movie trailers
Yeah.
that really spiked everyone's interest. And yeah, that's the reason why people got interested in this. People were excited about it. But before then, people really weren't. They thought it was just like a bit of a joke.
Mm.
So yeah, it's understandable. I will say as well, the mummy is now rocking his speedos. So we're late enough into the movie. The poor guy was doing so much work, and in this environment as well, it's not exactly easy. Doing
No.
everything he could to just get into rough shape. And Rachel was doing another kiss, which again she spends a good fifth of this movie just kissing.
Yeah, I mean, fair play to Arnold though. The work's been well spent. So
Oh yeah, yeah, and he's another one as well. He's really good when he's talking about this film.
mm,
You know, he talks about the challenges, but he also talks about as well the spirit that everyone was struggling, that lots of people had challenges, but they got on and they made the film.
Yeah, fully understandable because I mean, this does look like it was challenging, but the personalities involved, they
Mm.
all just seem like decent folk, you know?
Yeah. Oh, I should mention as well. Let me get her name right. Patricia
Oh, yes. Velasquez?
Velasquez.
Yeah.
Velasquez, yes, who plays Anuksu Namun. She, I remember her from Arrested Development, where she
Mm,
plays the maid Marta, and I remember her being genuinely very very funny. And she has, unfortunately, again, hers is a very much a role of its time. She's,
mm.
she's there to be glamorous and spindly thin at the start of the film. She does do a little bit more in the sequel, but again, she's gone on to a really good career. She's done a lot of
Yeah,
good stuff. She's done some good horror films and stuff like that. So, which is nice. But yes, in terms of this movie, it was nice that they brought her back for the sequel and gave her a little bit more to do.
yeah. And it's one of those things that with this fourth film we know is coming, I could easily see someone in the writer's room trying to work up ways they could bring Arnold and Patricia both back in some way. Because
I would love it if they at the end of the film. Now I hate cameos in films by the original cast. It's like
yeah,
bring them back properly or don't bring them back at all.
yeah,
But it would be hilarious if the guys in the current, the new version were getting help from people and you didn't know who. And then at the end you revealed that it was both of them in
mm,
human form. They had already resurrected and they were just living a normal life.
yeah,
And they weren't being evil, they weren't being the protagonists, they weren't trying to destroy the world. They'd won off camera
mm,
and they were just living their best life. It's almost like the end of The Dark Knight,
yeah.
Bruce Wayne going and having a normal life.
Mm. Well, I mean, that's the thing about that this film does really well at the very start. It's that Imhotep and Amun, they're not really bad people at the start, as we
Yeah.
see it. She's literally the pharaoh's property.
A trophy wife.
Yeah,
And not even a trophy wife, a trophy mistress.
yeah, she's coated in that body paint to make sure nobody can touch her. Whilst he is the pharaoh's high priest, they are both locked into very specific roles of what they can and can't do, and they choose love, really.
Yeah. Oh, it is a tragic story.
Yeah, I mean,
That's all he wants.
the stuff they do after that is, yeah, dealing in dark gods and all sorts of other shenanigans. But hey, the initial thought was good.
90s CG characters. They weren't all perfect, but they did the job. And this is where you get a
Yeah,
bit of the sort of Jason of the Argonauts come out with
mm,
the skeletons, which is nice.
it
Oh,
really is.
I did mention as well, by this point, I don't know if it was in the script or whether it was by luck or whether the director just saw it, but Ardeth has picked up the machine gun from the plane.
Yes,
And he looks like the baddest son of a bitch going. He
he
just looks.
really does.
I think he was included in the likes of things like Resident Evil purely based on people going, he looks really good when holding a very large machine gun. And they went,
Yeah,
yeah, good point. We'll just
yeah,
let him do that.
and I mean that's not even a particularly. It's a light machine gun.
Mm.
I think it's the old Lewis gun, or precursor to the Bren. They're not designed to be fired like that.
Yeah.
They're
It
supposed to
take,
have either a mount or be resting on the ground. You need to be a bit of a unit to do it like that. Normally, I mean, the commandos in World War II did that, but that's because they were the commandos, and well, they're the commandos. So it adds something to a character when you see him doing that, and he does do it very. there's like you say, sometimes you just need to have the right vibe with a big gun, and
Yeah.
that gives you a decent little run of rolls.
The idea of shooting the mirrors is such a video game trope
Mm.
nowadays. It almost feels it's surprising that they don't do more of it. Oh yeah, I realize Jonathan is quick to get the guns out and
Oh yeah, he's not shy
until he
about.
until he instead of reloading, he just throws a gun at Mummy. That's yeah. But this is again, this is one of those elements, and it's such a trope with these films now, is that they always find a big treasure, a big element
Mm.
of gold, and then they never get to it because the film ends and the thing gets submerged by the sand and it's never found again. Where of course nowadays everyone would be just like on that like hotcakes. They would just be mercilessly scanning that area with everything they have to get that treasure. And yes, there might be a booby trap, but trust me, they would get over that.
Yeah, there are ways and means.
What would you like if they did a sequel? What would your dream idea be?
It's a tough one really because
Would you okay? Would you so for those who don't know as well, the third film, which you don't trust me, folks, you don't have to see, but they try and set up some family dynamic with their son, played by an actor who's only 13 years younger than Brendan, and it looks true. It's not good. But
it's odd. Yeah.
would you like him to just play the old cantankerous Rick? So he's not doing a ton of action. Maybe he has got a substitute to do stuff for him, but that he can be there with the humor.
I think so. You have Rick as the elder statesman character, kind of along for the ride, partly for old time's sake, and partly just because Evie's gone along, and so he wants to make sure she's in good hands more than anything.
Cool. Oh, one element that I I think has not been forgotten, but it was during. So when Brendan was up for the whale, which is obviously a very different type of role, a very different
Yeah.
type of film. It's worth seeing, people. It really is. But I'm not going to derail this podcast by talking about it here. But Brendan was in London, and the Prince Charles Theatre, which is the home of small films and small screenings in the heart of London, somehow still survives. But they were doing a screening of The Mummy. And so he arranged with them, and just before the film started, he walked into the Prince Charles in Rick's costume,
Oh wow.
and people lost their goddamn minds. And this was as well the love for him as a person. People just lost it completely. It was lovely to see, and he talked briefly about how lovely it was to be here, and blah blah blah. And he loved that people were fans. And folks, I'm not so blind that I don't know that a lot of it was because there was a big Oscar push for him as the whale at that point. It really did help, cementing the fact that fans love him. But it
Yeah.
was a genuinely lovely thing to see, genuinely. And yeah, people.
Brilliant.
I think it's one of those films that as long as they don't make fans feel like a cheap experience. And I have to say, the latest Indiana Jones had a bit of that. If they can just do some justice to his character and let him be him, I think they'll do really well. But if they overplay the nostalgia cut and just repeat everything again, they might lose audiences a bit. It's a
Yeah.
delicate balancing act.
Yeah. I mean, Indy is an interesting comparison point because I know that Dial of Destiny didn't click for a
A
lot of
lot of
folks.
people, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there were elements of it I would have changed, but I thought the story that they were telling was a good send off for Harrison's time as the character.
It was. It got a little bit. I think it got a little bit meshed in some modern studio politics,
Hmm.
which was a shame because it didn't deserve that. I think as
Yeah.
well, films like this, you can't put too much into this.
Mm.
Because if you put too much, it's like when we were talking about. So at the time of recording, Total Recall is not Total Recall. Running Man is going to come out in a couple of days, and we talk about this idea of when you remake films from the 80s or the 90s, and the ideas in the originals are quite bare bones with one bad guy and one henchman and one other thing. And then in the new remakes, they've got three bad guys doing different things and two henchmen. And suddenly your idea gets a little bit stretched, a little bit thin. It might be more, it might be deeper, it might have more to it, but it doesn't feel quite right because the balance has gone. So I like the idea that they keep, if they do, well, when they make this, that they do keep it kind of the same amount of cast and crew, the same episode cast, the same amount of situations, that they don't suddenly try and add in three embassies acting against them, two villains from two different nationalities that are battling each other and him, that there isn't a secret police force, and they don't include too
Yeah.
many monsters. They keep it as quick as they can. God, that didn't make any sense.
No, I get what you mean. You kind of want it to retain the purity in a way of what this film does. 'Cause it's incredibly focused, and the problem with the second film is that because it was so rushed, the plot is trying to push things back into place, and then the third film is it's making some swings that I think are well intentioned, but they're trying to avoid repeating what they did before,
Hmm.
and they're swinging a bit too hard.
I
So,
think it was either the second or the third was written by the Smallville guys who've done Wednesday. And it says a lot that even when they struck gold again with Wednesday, when it came to the sequel series, they put too much into it. And funny enough, I've just realized it has a lot of the same problems as the sequel to this has, is that they're just trying to do a bit too much. I know
yeah,
the whole idea of a sequel is do the same thing again, kind of in the same way, but add
mm,
in some different stuff. And the problem is, well, that means then you've got the entirety of the first film's contents plus half an extra film. That's why it's too much. So you've got to be prepared to maybe lose out on some fan moments. And let's face it, Brendan's not going to want to do all the action. So you don't have to include all of that. But you can then just do some other stuff instead. I like this. We're talking about a film. Come enjoy our commentary on The Mummy, where we talk about a film that's not been made yet. Speaking of things that were not properly made, this film also suffered from some very interesting computer games. There are
oh yeah,
some videos out there of various people. I think Mr. Sunday Movies did it, where they had a look at the Mummy computer game, and the CG model for Brendan is not one of the better ones. It didn't win any awards for it. It got by, which is, let's face it, what a lot of games had to do at the time.
yeah. I mean, this was solidly in the PS1 era,
Oh yes.
which that shift to full 3D, it didn't go down terribly well if you're trying to do a licensed game,
Yeah.
to say the least.
Well,
I mean,
also as well, at this point they were, let's face it, they were treating computer game tie-ins, and they were often giving them so little room to development and so little time. And by this point, games were taking longer and longer to make. If you were going to make one good, it would take a
yeah,
much longer to make than even a movie would.
yeah.
So this is why you started to have this imbalance. And unfortunately, yeah, for a good 5, 6 years, we got some really horrible computer game tie-ins. I mean, there have been worse.
Oh
At least
god,
this is
yeah.
better than ET, so there we go. I don't think they ever dumped a load of these in the desert.
New.
I
That
do. I like the twist in this, by the way, that Jonathan does essentially kill the remaining mummy in the film, but
mm,
it's also that the mummies in the film kill the mummy. It's almost like they have split bad guys. The only thing that slightly frustrates me is you don't see more of them afterwards.
Yeah.
It's like I would almost like an end credit scene where one of them is just walking around in the desert after this all goes down. Like one of them has survived. But instead of him being a bad guy, which he's not, he's just a guard, he's just mulling around wondering what the hell to do.
That would be quite funny. I mean, that's the sort of thing you could easily imagine them doing for this fourth film.
Well,
Just
funnily,
having a random.
what the idea of maybe having somebody who's come back from the dead at the end of a film wandering around?
I mean, I was thinking having one of these guards just.
Yeah. Well, because the reason I say that is because, and this would be a nice reversal of roles, I think. So I watched the Tom Cruise Mummy,
Hmm.
and Tom Cruise was one of the people that was originally considered for this film. When people say that he was originally considered, please remember, folks, any film gets made in Hollywood, a copy of that script goes to the dozen or so A-listers of that time. Like, even
Yeah.
if it's not that suitable, they all get a copy. So that's when they say, oh, Tom Cruise was considered for this, or Brad Pitt, or whatever. Of course, they were considered for like 300 films that year. The fact is, most of them, they never even get to read. But the fact is that the Tom Cruise Mummy does have that idea of almost the American Werewolf of London, the undead friend kind of sticking around. And it does take bits from this film and from the
Yeah.
original. It has a bit more in common than you think. And I would say, and this is this is my opinion. So, but it was very fashionable to dunk on that film.
Hmm.
And there is a lot of stuff that doesn't work perfectly well. But if you like some of the ideas in this film and you're okay with seeing a different version, maybe give it a go if you've not seen it already.
Absolutely. I mean,
If Sorry, I just got to say this final bit because
no, go on.
if you think that somebody redoing this without this cast is something that you don't like, I totally understand. If you think, yeah, I'm going to hate it because it's not my guy Brendan, again, I totally understand. Don't see the film because you'll end up hating it. And it's weird to hate a film, but I think a lot of people didn't like The Mummy because it wasn't this film. And also, as we record this, we're only a month or so after another film, I want to say Lee Cronenberg after the beer, but it's like Lee Cronin or Lee Kroberg or whatever his name is.
Yeah, I mean, I
Saint
think
Crow.
I
But
think
they,
it's at cinemas now
yeah,
over here. Yeah.
but they had to go, like the director had to multiple times state on social media, no, Brendan Fraser is not in this version of The Mummy, which again
Yeah.
is another reason why they've rebooted this film, or they want to do a sequel, because they've realized even when another film is on, people are still going, hang on, is Brendan Fraser in this? And I'm so glad that they didn't do a cheap like Evil Dead,
Oh,
with
yeah, the 2010s Evil Dead where Ash
yeah,
shows up in the post
literally
credits.
for no reason whatsoever.
Hmm.
So it's nice that they can do this. Sorry, dear, I've really talked so much. I thought you were going to be doing all the talking here,
No,
and
that's
I've
fine.
I've gone and talked all over the final. I've talked over the final confrontation. What a turn up for the books.
Hell, I've been enjoying this. I mean, no, all I'd say is that you're right. If you're really locked into this particular Cruise dynamic, the Tom Cruise Mummy. I mean, that was a weird movie anyway because it was when Universal were trying to do their Dark Universe
Yeah, which is
project,
we will
which
talk about that at some point, I'm sure. But
yeah, yeah, it was odd. The film's odd. You do have a quite wonderful scenery chewing bit from Russell Crowe, which you can see from his bit how they were going to expand broader,
mm.
but that film kind of killed the whole concept deader than Dodo, unfortunately.
This, by the way, this is. I was writing notes on this. This is a really nasty, nasty Pitch Black. It's very much like Pitch Black, the Vin Diesel film, way to
Yeah.
kill off Benji. Bit of special effects with him having a gas feed that manually cut off his torch so you could get that effect. But it was something, and I thought about it. It is a cruel way to kill anyone in a film, but the film has spent its entire time making this character so unlikable that you accept it being that nasty a death.
Yeah,
It,
the thing is, Imhotep, you almost feel sorry for because he's lost completely
yeah,
by the
and
time he
he
dies.
even says as well, it's like his last words are, well, love. I think it love conquers all, or love returns, or something.
Yeah.
His thing. And the thing is, he does die in the place where she is resting.
Mm.
So, but you do get this sorrow, like it's not his fault. Whereas Benny, it's all his fault. It's deserved.
Yeah.
And the worst thing is, he was only killed because he went back for more. And I didn't
Yeah.
even mention this earlier. This film
Yeah.
is Seven Deadly Sins.
Yeah. Benny has every chance to get away with what he wanted,
Yeah.
but he just he couldn't help himself. He had to go back for a little bit more.
And you do see that scene as well. They do show it. It's that moment where he can't fight his demons. It's a shame, but yeah, all of them. I mean, at the beginning you have lust, you have desire, you have envy, you have greed, for the people that don't back away when they should do. You have all of the sins here, and they all fall foul of them. And the only reason that Rick doesn't is because his initial instincts are overcome by love, and so that sort of saves him at the end of the day. Oh, I didn't mention as well. So there were scenes obviously with Benny when he's like loading up and dealing with the camels.
Mm.
One of the stories they don't mention too much, but the actor, for some reason, none of the camels liked him, and it was genuinely a problem. So they had to kind of rework how they were going to do the scene because the camel would just try and bite him, and nobody could figure out why. Least of all the actor, who's lovely in real life.
Hmm.
So there we go. That that has been shockingly, I feel, far too much of me talking over the mummy as opposed to Dee talking about the mummy.
Hey man, I've been digging this. I mean, you got my initial hype, and I've just been along for the ride
Oh,
because
that's good. I, trust me, we have a show coming up, and I'm not going to say who's involved. Dee knows. Where I've already said to the people involved that I will do the intro, and I will introduce the guests. And then I
yeah,
might record something. In fact, I'm thinking of recording a separate 10-minute chunk of commentary to put on the end of the commentary. And then I'm going to aim to shut up for the rest of the movie. It should be good. But
yeah.
no, so I was making films when this came
Hmm.
out. I was at film school. So
Okay.
I didn't see this because I was shooting on 60 mil, and I was even doing some work on 35 mil at the time. So I was too busy. But when you finally saw this, did were you one of those that was hyped up for a sequel? Were you one of those that was desperate for more in the trilogy?
I mean, I think I watched one and two back to back on DVD
Okay.
because I had the first one, and my housemate he bought one and two together because they come out around. He'd picked them up on DVD as a double pack.
Hmm.
So we just had an evening where we watched them with a few drinks and some food. Had a
Cool.
good old evening of it. Honestly, after Mummy Returns, I was quite happy that was it. I
Yeah.
knew that we were getting a spin-off with the Scorpion King because that had been announced quite a bit in advance.
But you were like, the magic hasn't been replicated. That, like, this film stands proud.
I mean, I enjoyed Mummy Returns, but I could tell it's easy to tell that it's a lesser film
Yeah.
compared to this one,
Cool.
uh, which is a shame because but it was they were trying to capitalize on this film's success, and because it had been such a surprise, so they hadn't really got anything planned out ahead of time.
Mm.
So the Mummy Returns. because I think it only came out, what, 2 years after this one?
Yeah. Oh, it was very, very, very fast turnaround, which is
Yeah.
part of the problem. So,
And yet in universe, there's like a 7 or 8-year gap or 10-year gap because the Connells now have their son. And it felt a bit odd
yeah.
overall. And I
Yep.
think also expectation was so high because people had enjoyed this one so much.
Mm.
But,
I will say as well, so very quickly from me, so this film was released about 2 months before Star Wars,
yeah,
because
for
that
episode
was
1.
that was the big, and that was then a couple of months before The Matrix. So it expectations for fantasy and FX driven films changed dramatically in just a year following this film coming
Yeah.
out, which is why The Mummy Returns, with its less than stellar effects, really got trounced. Will mention as well the special effect that we've not covered here, which is the score by Jerry Goldsmith. It is an absolute belter. It
Oh, yeah.
really is. It's probably the biggest kind of throwback to the Indiana Jones films in terms of it drives the film. It's fantastic, and you should definitely give it a listen if you can.
Most definitely. You gotta love a good film soundtrack. And Jerry Goldsmith was one of those hands who he very rarely missed
Exactly.
with soundtracks. He knew what he was about, and he delivered what the director needed.
Cool.
So,
So, do you have any final thoughts before I wish people farewell and
well,
drift back to the desert?
the only other thing I'd point out as well is that when Mummy Returns came out, people, I mean, even before, whilst this film was on release, we knew that Lord of the Rings was shooting.
Mm,
So there was the expectations and anticipation for certain genres of film. I mean, the last film I watched that had the same sort of vibe as this might have been Hidalgo with Viggo Mortensen,
mm,
and I think that actually had I think that might have had Omar Sharif in as well. To be fair, but that was his first big film post Lord of the Rings,
yeah,
and not fancy film in any way. It's much more grounded than that, but it has that same sort of vibe to it.
yeah.
But it's type of film that has people enjoy sort of pulp adventure movies.
Mm,
There's a reason indie's done so well. There's a reason there's in certain media's the classic heroes have kept going. I mean,
yeah.
the likes of Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, the Shadow, the Phantom, Zorro,
Mhm.
all these sort of characters do still keep trucking along with not massive sales figures in different medias, but enough that they can keep on going.
Yeah.
So there is an audience for them. It's just you do need to get the. It's almost like lightning, trying to get the right mix of things to come together.
If you can catch it in a bottle, you're fine.
Yeah,
This absolutely was one of those. So lovely.
that uh, it's very fortunate that they cast who. I mean, the whole cast is pretty much perfect. To be
Yeah.
honest, you can't you can't imagine anyone playing any of these roles other than who's in it, and that's kind of delightful.
Hmm.
And I love that people have been rediscovering the Mummy over the last 6, 7 years. I think it's safe to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just delightful.
And on that note, we shall bid you farewell.
Indeed. Thanks for listening, folks.
Yeah. Take care, and we'll speak to you soon.
Bye.
Bye. We did it. We got done before the credits. Hey.
Yay!
Hey folks, if you enjoyed the show, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We chat about new movies every fortnight. And if you're interested in hearing more from us, and if you like a bit of fantasy, 40k, or tabletop gaming, the links to our parent channel, the Fluff and Hammer podcast, are in the show notes.